Cold open, the plane that leaked on purpose. You're looking at an aircraft that was designed to fly so fast, its own skin had to catch fire just to stop leaking fuel. This isn't a malfunction. This is the plane working exactly as intended. It was built to fly at Mach 3.2, over 3 times the speed of sound, using fuel bought unknowingly from the very country it was built to spy on. Stick around, because the way the CIA pulled this off is one of the strangest heists in the history of engineering. The problem nobody could solve. By the late 1950s, America's best spy plane, the U-2, had become a sitting duck. Soviet SA-2 missiles could reach its cruising altitude, and Washington was staring down a terrifying blackout, losing its eyes on its most dangerous adversary right when it needed them most. The only answer left on the table sounded almost impossible: build a plane fast enough to simply outrun the missiles built to kill it. The man who had to build the impossible. The job went to Kelly Johnson and Lockheed's Skunk Works, the same ultra-secret division already famous for building the U-2 in total isolation. Their new target, an aircraft that could sustain Mach 3.2 at 85,000 feet, fast and high enough to make every Soviet defense system of the era obsolete through sheer velocity alone. But flying that fast doesn't just test an engine, it turns the entire airframe into a slow-motion furnace. The heat barrier. At Mach 3.2, air friction alone generates enough heat to soften standard aluminium like warm butter. Steel could survive the heat, but it was too heavy to ever leave the ground at that speed. There was only one metal, light enough and tough enough to survive: titanium. Problem was, almost nobody outside the Soviet Union had enough of it, which meant Lockheed and the CIA were about to attempt one of the strangest heists in intelligence history: the titanium heist. To build a plane meant to spy on the USSR, the CIA needed the USSR's own titanium ore. Through a maze of front companies scattered across the globe, American buyers quietly purchased the raw material from Moscow itself, who had no idea they were selling the rope that would build the plane mapping their most secret bases. Moscow thought they were just selling ore. They were actually arming the aircraft built to outfly them. A metal suit that only fits on fire. Even titanium had a strange side effect. At cruising speed, the panels expanded by several inches from the heat. So engineers deliberately built the fuel tanks with gaps, meaning on the ground, the aircraft leaked fuel constantly. Only once it reached Mach 3 did the heat expand the metal enough to seal the tanks shut. The plane wasn't broken on the ground, it just hadn't caught fire yet. The trombone inside the engine. The J58 engine at the heart of the aircraft was a hybrid unlike anything flown before. It actually became more efficient the faster the plane went. The secret was a massive inlet spike that slid back and forth up to 26 inches, like a musician's trombone, slowing incoming air from Mach 3 down to a digestible Mach 0.3 before it ever reached the compressor. Get that timing wrong for even a fraction of a second, and pilots described what happens next as tripping at a full sprint. Fuel that refuses to burn. Every part of this aircraft was a response to heat, and nowhere was that clearer than the fuel itself. JP-7 circulated through the airframe like blood, absorbing heat before it ever reached the engine. It was so stable that you could drop a lit match directly into a pool of it, and the match would simply go out, which meant pilots needed something else entirely just to get the engines to light in the first place: the chemical match. Because JP-7 was so hard to ignite, engines and afterburners needed a shot of triethylborane, TEB, a chemical so volatile it burns bright green on contact with air. Every mission and every afterburner engagement depended on a limited onboard supply of it. Run out of TEB mid-mission and the afterburners simply would not light, no matter how fast the pilot needed to go. Windows welded with sound. Ordinary glass would have distorted or melted at cruising speed, so engineers used quartz camera windows instead, fused to the titanium frame with ultrasonic welding, because no adhesive on Earth could survive the heat. Even the control cables had to be reinvented, borrowing alloy technology from precision watch springs after standard cables snapped like dry twigs. Every single component on this aircraft had to be reinvented from scratch, because nothing built for a normal plane could survive being this fast. Why every pilot had to be married. The CIA's selection process for A-12 pilots had one unusual requirement: marital status. It wasn't sentiment, it was cold calculation. A pilot with a wife and children carried what officials called social insurance, a tether that made defecting with the aircraft far less appealing. Flying a Mach 3 spy plane wasn't just a test of skill. For the CIA, it was a test of exactly how much you had to lose. The mission that was cancelled before it began. In May 1960, U-2 pilot Gary Powers was shot down deep over Soviet territory. Eisenhower promised to halt all manned overflights of the USSR, a diplomatic decision that neutered the A-12's original mission before the aircraft had even completed its first flight. The plane, built specifically to fly over the Soviet Union, would now almost never be allowed to do it. First flight, first crash. In 1962, at Area 51, the A-12 finally flew, validating the Mach 3.2 design concept the team had spent years chasing. But the following year, disaster struck in Utah. An A-12 stalled and crashed. The pilot survived, but the program's existence was still a closely guarded secret. So the CIA did something almost as strange as the plane itself. They paid the witnesses to stay quiet. If a program built entirely on secrets like this is worth your time, it's probably worth a like. And subscribing means you'll catch the next one too. Because the very next year, a president's slip of the tongue was about to cost Lockheed 29,000 corrected documents. The name that was never supposed to exist. In 1964, President Johnson publicly revealed the program and misspoke the aircraft's designation on camera, calling it the SR-71 instead of the planned RS-71. Correcting a president wasn't an option, so Lockheed manually updated 29,000 documents to match the mistake instead. A single verbal slip from the President of the United States is the entire reason the world calls this plane the SR-71 today, not actually invisible. Despite its legend, the Blackbird was never a true stealth aircraft. Radar-absorbent composites built into its sharp fuselage edges reduced its signature, but its radar cross-section was still 107 square feet, compared to roughly the size of a B for a modern B-2 bomber. It was detectable. It was simply too fast for that detection to matter. The Blackbird didn't hide from radar. It just made sure radar could never catch up in time. The end of the line. The CIA retired the A-12 in 1968, folding reconnaissance duties into the Air Force's SR-71. 30 years later, in 1998, the entire SR-71 fleet was retired for good, replaced by satellites and drones that could do the job without risking a pilot's life at 3 times the speed of sound. But one last Blackbird had one more record to set before it was finished flying forever. Conclusion. Mach 3.21, one last time. On October 9, 1999, NASA flew the final Blackbird flight ever recorded, hitting Mach 3.21 before retiring the airframe to museum status for good. The program never stopped being controversial, expensive, and strange, but the titanium welding and composite techniques born from it quietly shaped nearly every high-performance airframe built afterward. Closing line. The Blackbird was built to disappear at the edge of physics. Instead, it became the plane everyone remembers precisely because nothing about it made sense until you understood exactly why. If you enjoyed this one, there's more where it came from. Subscribing means you won't miss the next.